Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Kolakowski. It's my great honor and privilege to be the director here at the Wisconsin Veterans Museum. And I'd like to welcome everybody to this virtual mess night, which is the first mess night that we've done actually since the last in-person one in January. So it's nice to get back into these and look for more of these as we go over the next into 2021. It was great to see everybody here tonight and for an exciting program. Highlighting some really interesting and important history of Wisconsin veterans here for sure. Before we do anything else, I just want to say thank you to the Wisconsin Veterans Museum Foundation, who, without whom we wouldn't be able to put on programs like this, including, for example, using the Zoom account and things like that. Their support is absolutely critical to our operations, and it's a wonderful partnership we have. And I want to say thank you to them, and thank you to all the members who your support helps make all of these programs and many of the things that we do at the Veterans Museum possible. The Veterans Museum, as many of you on this call, I've seen some familiar faces and names, probably know the Veterans Museum has been around since 1899. We've been across the street we were in the state capitol. We've been across the street from the state capitol since 1993, down literally right at the head of State Street. And we tell the story of Wisconsin veterans, the broadest possible definition of that, from the Civil War up to the present day. And one of the many things we do, in addition to preserving artifacts and stories and through letters and pictures and material items, is also preserving the memories and preserving the stories by providing engaging educational programming, much like what we're doing tonight. We've got a lot of stuff that we have on offer. We've either have recorded, and you can find on our YouTube channel, or if you visit our museum website, which is wizvetsmuseum.com. Molly or Eric, if you guys could put that in the chat for everybody, that'd be great. You can see some of the programs we've got coming up throughout the rest of this calendar year, and we're just about to announce the first few months of 2021. So stay tuned for that. And also, I do have to put this in there since we are very close to holiday shopping season. Our revamped museum store recently relaunched. So if you're looking for gifts for the veteran or the military enthusiast in your life, we've got some great stuff, and you can find that also on our museum website. So with that, I'm going to get out of the way. I know you're not here to hear me talk, but I did want to say thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our education manager, Eric Wright, who will take the program from here. So Eric, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everybody. And as Chris said as well, thank you for coming out tonight and joining us for this excellent lecture that we have lined up. Before we get started, I just would like to remind everybody, if you do have any questions for our lecture tonight, you can post those on the chat board, and we will bring those questions up to Professor Jones at the end of our segment tonight. So please, any questions you have, post those on the chat board, and we will definitely get to those. Tonight, we are welcoming Professor Tom Jones, who's going to be speaking about honoring the Ho-Chunk warrior. Tom Jones is a professor of photography at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He received a Master of Fine Arts in Photography and a Master of Arts in Museum Studies from Columbia College in Chicago, Illinois. And Professor Jones' artwork is a commentary on the American Indian identity, experience, and perception. He is examining how American Indian culture is represented through popular culture and raises questions about these depictions of identity by non-natives and natives alike. He continues to work on an ongoing photographic essay of the contemporary life of his tribe, the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin. Professor Jones is also the co-author of a book, People of the Big Voice, Photographs of Ho-Chunk Families by Charles Van Schleck, 1879 to 1943. And he's also co-curator for the exhibition For a Love of His People, the photography of Horace Pulaw at the National Museum of the American Indian. His artwork is in numerous private and public collections, most notably the National Museum of the American Indian, Polaroid Corporation, Sprint Corporation, the Chazen Museum of Art, the Nerman Museum, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Museum of Contemporary of Native Arts, and Microsoft. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Professor Tom Jones to our virtual platform tonight. Good evening, Professor.
Thank you very much. I just appreciate everybody who's come today, and I'll get started here. This is my first in-person Zoom, so well, hopefully I'll be able to do this correctly here. One thing that I like to start off with the Ho-Chunk and is about the removals. And our tribe was removed probably 7 times from Wisconsin. And this is our original homeland. And the Creator placed us at the Red Banks, which is what is known as Green Bay today. And so, you know, it was even towards the end of these removals that Ho-Chunks, you know, were fighting for the United States government during the Civil War. And so I like to share this map so you guys are aware of all the different places that they took us to. Eventually, the last one was in Winnebago, Nebraska. And what happened is all the Ho-Chunks that are here now in Wisconsin are the ones that kept returning. And either they walked. There's a great story about Yellow Thunder, who is in the Wisconsin Dells, is they took him out on a car or a train and threw him in a boxcar. And here he got back before the people who took him out there. There is, of course, many other struggles that people did. Some of them would go down the Missouri River and then back up the Mississippi to get back. There are others that walked, but I just like to share that part of our history with you. So he already discussed this book that I've done. For those interested in veteran stories, there are photographs of them in there, and I'm sharing a couple with you. But the first one I wanted to share is of my great-grandfather, George Funmaker, who was born in 1864. And he's the one that's on the right. And when he was a young boy, I think he was about 12, he was ice skating on a pond. And they were having a feast lodge at that time. And that's when they rounded them all up and threw them on boxcars and sent them out west. This person here is James Byrd. He was in the Civil War, and he was a private with Company A of the Omaha Scouts, which was made up of 6 white officers and 72 Ho-Chunk soldiers. The next one is John Johnson. And this one was picture.
Tom, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. This is Yvette. I just want to let you know you're going to need to share your screen because we're not currently seeing the images.
Okay, and show. Okay, see how I am? Okay, share. Okay, I'll give you that picture again at the beginning. Those are the removals.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh. Thank you. God, go through the whole dang thing. And then here's the cover of the People of the Big Voice. This was my grandfather on the right. And this was James Byrd. Oops. Now I'm stuck. Okay. And this is John Johnson. So he was also part of the Omaha Scouts. And, you know, one thing I also want to share with you is that throughout Indian country, 1 in 4 Native Americans are veterans. And so it's a, you know, major part of our lives. And the Ho-Chunk themselves have fought in every war for the United States, except for the War of 1812, where we fought on the side of the British. And I just wanted to read this bit to you. According to old Ho-Chunk beliefs, a man who goes to war and dies in battle lives forever. He may come down to earth again in human form, or he may roam the skies as long as he wishes. Practically, everything the Ho-Chunk does is governed by religion. To him, the soul or spirit is all important and lives forever, even to be born again. The body is only a case for that spirit. look into the beliefs of the people to whom the sacred spot belongs. A complete understanding of the Winnebago, which is now Ho-Chunk culture, helps one understand what a truly deep belief in God and his creatures has done to help these people through 150 years of crisis. And it also leads to finding of beauty in this culture. And this was written by Mrs. Josephine Minette Haggie. My thing keeps freezing here. Okay, so, we talked about how important it is in our religion. And it is during these feast lodges that they take care of the war bundles for our tribe. And here's an example from Charles Redcloud. And he was a Ho-Chunk writer for the Banner Journal in the Black River Falls area. And here he speaks about how the Black River or the Blackdeer boys came back after World War II, and they were having a feast for them. And here's an example from one of Charles Van Scoyck's photographs of the Chiefs Feast Lodge. And that flag that you see flying there is a British flag. And so that's part of, of going to war. And so they still display a British flag still today. These are some more examples of Charles Van Scoyck. And this is Andrew Blackhawk. And he's the one that actually donated the land that the Memorial Day powwow takes place in Black River. And there was a lot of strife going on in the tribe at the time. And so he wanted to bring the people together. And so that's why he donated that land. And it's still in use today. And that powwow is one of the oldest in the nation today. This is an example of him from when he was a baby up until he was old. Because Charles Van Scoyck photographed from 1879 to about 1940. So got the whole span of his life. So when I started this project in 1998, I was actually photographing in black and white. And what's interesting is the Wisconsin Veterans Museum gave me my first show of this work. And they were like, well, could you do it in color for us? And so I have been doing that ever since. And so here's an example of Emmanuel Thundercloud, who is a code talker. And then here's an example of a color one. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And so it was in 2012 or 13 that Sandry Winishik found a folder in the Veterans Affairs Office for Ho-Chunk that said possible code talkers. And she started doing research and she was able to then get them acknowledged. And there were 7 first that received medals. And then 3 years later, there were 7 more that were added. But in my research with Charles Redcloud, I found this one too. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to acknowledge him at the same time. And so, they say that it wasn't talked about, but here is Charles Redcloud actually writing about it and saying how they're using the Winnebago language so that the Germans could not understand them. And here's another one. We know some of our boys keep the radio to use Indian language so that our enemy not to understand what they talk about. This was a good idea. And George Green was one to keep this work. And he was last with the radio in New Guinea somewhere. He is a pretty educated boy in here, Neilsville Indian Mission School. And there's a story that a veteran told me that was great. He was in the World War II, and they asked him if he spoke Indian. And he's like, yeah, I speak Indian. And they had him listening to this guy. And he's like, well, what did he say? And he's like, I don't know. And here it was like, you know, some other tribe. And so it was like probably Navajo or another person. But there were 33 tribes that were recognized as being code talkers. This is the medal that they designed. And there were individuals within the tribe, including our chief, who helped design the medals. Are you guys seeing the whole thing? And I'm not doing like this, just the screen.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So this is the list of the Ho-Chunk code talkers that are acknowledged thus far. Alvin Blackdeer, Clifford Blackdeer, Donald Blackdeer, Irvin Blackdeer, Donald Greengrass, Adam Little Bear Jr., Howard Littlejohn, Bill Mike, Jesse Mike, Alfred Stacy, Emmanuel Thundercloud, Bill White Bear, and Benjamin Winishik. So again, this takes place during the Memorial Day powwow. And what they'll do is they will have a powwow from Saturday till Monday. And those first 2 days are contest dancing that goes on. And then on Monday, it's all dedicated to the veterans. And so they start off in the morning, you know, of course, giving them a gun salute. And then there are about 100 flagpoles that encircle the powwow grounds. And the veterans will raise the flags for those veterans who are now deceased. And it's a really moving experience. And if any of you have the chance, you're more than welcome to come up and see it. So they'll have, you know, also white veterans. A lot of them will come to this because they find that they don't have other places to go during that time. And they really respect what we do and how we treat our veterans. So this is the dance arena, which they come into. And what they do after they raise the flag to half staff, they invite all the veterans to come into the dance arena. And each one of them will tell what branch they were from and what war they were in. And then what they'll do next is they start bringing in the flags. And this is our chief, Clayton Winishik. And one thing that's really nice is that what they do is they'll have a song for each of the branches of the services. And so at that time, so if it's Navy, those Navy warriors come in, and then they'll dance around the arena, and then they'll invite their families and friends to come join them during that dance. And so they'll do that for every single branch, service branch. And generally when the powwows are going on, you go clockwise, the dancers do, but you'll see on the outside of those dancers, the veterans will dance counterclockwise around those people. And here they're about to post the flags. Gentleman on the left with the roach and feathers on his head is, oh God, I'm sorry, I'm like spacing his name out. Man is his last name. And he's from the warrior clan. And so we have, members of those that come in during that time of that clan. And of course, we have more and more women now who are veterans. These are Greendeers. These are Raves. They're the last name. Mary Kay Minor. And so after they do that, this will go on all day long. But then again, I kind of have some of this out of order, but they'll, then raise the flags up to full staff after that. And there's Muggs Garvin, who's in the audience now. She's our Veterans Affair Officer. She's on the left-hand side there. Oop, that one's a little blurry. This here is Owen Mike, and he's since deceased. And what their responsibility are as warriors is to feather the young ones who are starting to dance. And only veterans have that right to do that. And what that feather represents is someone that he has killed in war, and that is supposed to protect those children or protect those people, even if they're older. And the veterans also have many other responsibilities in our tribe culturally. During the funerals, they will come on the last night of the funeral, and they will share their stories of when they were in war and combat. And they say that the spirits, they want to hear those stories. And so they're, highly respected. I love this. Somebody's recruiting, and they made we call it a chiporoke structure. And in Ho-Chunk, our veterans, the Ho-Chunk word for it is wonk woshoshe. This horse was, another tribe came to visit us, and they gave our nation a horse to show respect to us. So this is the main thing that I'm actually photographing, are these photographs. And I'm interested in, how the families have decided to pick them and show them. And at these bases of these flagpoles, they'll also put tobacco. And it takes the form of cigarettes now, even though we still have our, call it Dani for tobacco, our Ho-Chunk tobacco. But they'll do this. And so when you go to that flagpole, you can take a cigarette and you're smoking in remembrance of that person. This here is Clifford Blackdeer. He's another code talker. Oh, geez. Okay, let's see. I'm freezing up here. Let's see. There we go. And then here's another year where they used a different photograph of him when he was older. Alvin Blackdeer, another code talker with his medals. Donald Blackdeer, code talker. Donald Greengrass, another code talker. Floyd Blackdeer. Duncan Rave. Herb Goodbear. Nellie Redcloud. She was a Red Star mother of Mitchell Redcloud, who was killed in action. And he received a Medal of Honor. And he also had Camp Redcloud named after him through the Army. And then through the Navy, he also had a ship named after him for what he did for the American people. So when he was in the war, he fought off the enemies, and they had shot him, and he pulled himself up onto a tree, and he had his people go back and warn the others, and he stayed there, and he just kept fighting, even though he kept getting shot and shot, and eventually, you know, of course, he passed from that, but he was able to save his company because of that. This is Ebenezer Hall, and this is actually a photograph I took of him. And when I gave it to him, and when he passed, his family then used that photograph for his flagpole. Oh, there's Clifford again. This is Mitchell Redcloud's father, who was also in World War I and World War II. Raymond McKee. Spencer Lewis. Richard Day. Samuel Thundercloud. Henry Decora. Eugene Thundercloud. Van Ver Dick. Oliver Rockman. Arlene Greengrass Rodriguez. Oh, and I also wanted to share a story about Owen Mike that he gave me. So when I was telling you that they would have to go and tell their stories during the funerals, he said that he would know before they came to him, when they would come ask him. And so that what that family does is they'll bring him tobacco and they'll ask him to come tell his stories. And he said oftentimes he knew beforehand, because when you kill somebody in action, those warriors or those enemies, they stay with you, and they're kind of beholden to you after that. And he said that he'd be driving down the road in his car, and then here he would see them in the back seat. He would see their spirits. This is Forrest Blackdeer. Mitchell Little Bear. Randy Blackdeer. James Carolan. So, you know, I've probably, I think, photographed over 100 of these poles. And again, like I said, they change over time. Sometimes they change the pictures. But again, not every family puts up a photograph. Sometimes it's just their flag with that tobacco. So not everybody is represented in it. Eventually what I'll be doing is a book of these. I still have more research to do. I want to try to get more stories from their families about them. And then the other thing that I do at these powwows is I will set up a traveling studio. And so I started this new series called Strong Unrelenting Spirits. And this is my mother, who is also a veteran. She joined the Air Force when she got out of high school. And when I was little, she wanted to get some healing from a medicine man out at Rosebud Reservation. And I believe his name is Robert Steed. And so we went into this room, and it was like a small building, and everybody was sitting along the walls, and they turned off all the lights. So it was pitch black in there. And it's, you know, I was about 7 when this happened. And they started singing, and the women were singing, and they were calling the spirits in. And all of a sudden there were white orbs of light that were kind of floating all over the room. And of course, as a little kid, I was scared. And I was in my mind trying to process, you know, it's like, well, is it somebody with a flashlight? I was like, but then you would see them, you know, the reflection or the light on their body. And they were spirits that were just, they were floating around, and they came in to heal the people. And so that's what I wanted this to kind of represent. So the lines that you see around my mother are is beadwork that I'm doing directly on the photograph. And they range around 20 by 25 to 40 by 65 in size. And some of them can take me up to about 100 hours to do. But there are a few veterans that I have here at the beginning. This is Colin Caraman, holding one of his relatives' flags. Amos Kingsley. Oh, Muggs Garvin. She's a little fuzzy. And then these are other just members of the tribe. So like I was showing you, where I'll photograph people in that traveling studio type setup. This is my nephew, Forster. His Ho-Chunk name is Nawahu, which means comes singing. Mary Funmaker. Cyrus Ortiz. Pendleton Price. DJ Scott. Peyton Grace Rapp. Raymond Goodbear. This one's probably the largest one that I've done, that 50 by 65. This work is currently down in Santa Fe at the Museum of Contemporary Native Arts, and will be up there till April. But of course, I think they've closed back down again for about a month. And Eliza Leonard. So one thing that I'd really suggest that you do, if you're interested in hearing more stories about Ho-Chunk warriors, is on YouTube, there's one by Boy Ladd, if you want to write that down. It's a really good interview. And he goes more in depth about the veterans of the tribe. So I'm showing you this new work, of course, just to get you all wearing your masks. And it was something that I wanted to do. And this woman here, Rita Kingswan, contacted me. And she said that the tribe, the health department, wanted to do a campaign of people wearing face masks. It's really bad right now in Ho-Chunk country. And it's really important, you know, that people do this. It's, you know, we've had people who have passed, and it's just, you know, it's just heartbreaking, you know, that people aren't taking it seriously. So what they're doing with these is they're placing them on billboards and doing posters, you know, throughout the communities. And so what I did is I went to different communities throughout Wisconsin of our tribe. We're not one centrally located tribe like other ones where they have a reservation. we have land that's throughout. So I went to Wisconsin Dells, Toma, Wisconsin Rapids, Wittenberg, and Black River Falls. And so they're doing this for each of the communities where they'll have their own billboards of their people. And I was placing these on Instagram, and somebody I knew saw them. And so she asked me to be a part of this mural. This was done by Shepard Ferry, and he contacted artists from the Milwaukee and area in Wisconsin and asked them to be a part of it. And so this is something, it's at Wells in Milwaukee Street, if you're interested in going and seeing it. It's really beautiful. And it was called Voting Rights Are Human Rights, in order to get the people out there to vote. And I was so happy that Randy Greendeer was able to go with her family and get this photograph of herself with it. So that's my website if you want to see other work that I do. And I guess now I can take some questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Jones. That was terribly interesting. And yes, we do have a few questions from some of our guests tonight. Molly, if you want to bring those up. Well, while we're waiting for Molly to do that, Professor, the first question we did ask, or we were asked, was about the powwow that you were talking about at the beginning of the presentation. If you could just remind everybody where that powwow takes place at and when.
Yeah, so they'll have one where they honor the veterans is for the Memorial Day powwow, Memorial Day weekend. And that's in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. And if you get off the interstate there at Perkins and go right, it is about maybe 5 miles, and then it's going to be on the left-hand side. You'll see cars parked all over the place. It's real easy to find. They also have a Labor Day powwow, that you can go to also.
What and I'm sorry, I accidentally muted myself. Anybody is allowed to attend those festivities?
Oh, yes. Anybody can come.
Excellent. The next question we have is, how have your photos changed throughout the years?
Well, actually putting this together, because even though I've been doing it this long, there are things that I've noticed. It's like, I need to start doing more of just kind of like around, I guess, the perimeter, more than just the raising of the flags. So I'm still, I guess, changing and wanting to do new things. I do have probably more portraits, that I haven't shown you, where I'm just pulling people aside and taking their picture. But I'd like to get some more of that done of, the veterans that are actually there raising the flags.
Okay, and I think we're ready for the rest of those questions now, Molly, if you want to bring those up. So the next question, Professor, is there one branch of service that Ho-Chunk tribe members seem to gravitate toward more than another branch of service? Or is it pretty much, is service throughout the Ho-Chunk Nation pretty much distributed throughout all the service branches?
You know what? If we have Muggs Garvin answer that, she's here and she's our tribal Veterans Affair Officer. Could you unmute her?
Yep, I unmuted. Excuse me. Depending on the family where they come from, some of them choose to follow, like there's a family of Navy veterans. So all the uncles, all the grandfathers sometimes people prefer to go that route with their family. But overall, if you look at all the numbers, it's pretty much even in all the branches. It's just that more family members tend to come out and dance for the Marine Corps song because they just include everybody. So it looks like there's more Marine Corps, but there really isn't. They just have more participation when it comes to the dance.
Excellent. Thank you, Margaret. Molly, can you move on to the next question, please? Why is Funmaker such a common name amongst the Ho-Chunk tribe? And can you possibly speak to its origin?
Yeah, so what happened in the late 1800s when they were taking the census, what they were doing is they were translating their Indian name into English. And so my great-grandfather, they had a hard time, I guess, describing it because it's more of a feeling. And so he's from the Bear Clan. And they say that, you know, when like a bear cub is playing or being playful. And so that's how they came up with the name Funmaker. But also his personality was like that too, where he was always joking, they said. And the reason why there's so many, and this gets back again to why you need to really wear a mask, is what he did is he had, oh God, now I'm spacing it out, 6 boys and a girl. And during the early 1900s was when influenza was going around. And so when I asked my grandfather and my mother, we were talking to him and we said, who were your friends when you were little? And he said, I didn't have any. And we started laughing because Ho-Chunks are always joking. And he's like, no, I didn't have any because my father kept us away from everybody. And so, you know, each family, like I was telling you, we don't have, like up in Black River Falls, their families have homesteads and it's kind of spread all out. And so they had a homestead that was, you know, kind of to themselves, which is actually just a mile or 2 down from the powwow grounds. But that's the reason why there are so many, is because all of his children survived that. You know, and there's also smallpox that was going around in the early 1900s too. So that's the reason.
Yeah, people seem to forget that we had a very serious pandemic crisis in 1918 and 1919 as well. And so, yeah, the quarantining definitely would limit your exposure to other people, and particularly back then without the social media and everything that we have nowadays. So I can understand how that would be very difficult. Molly, can you bring up the next question, please? Oh, yeah, somebody was curious about the beading on your photographs, and they wanted to know how long that process takes you and how you go about that.
So they'll take anywhere from 30 to about 110 hours, depending on the size. And what I started out doing is I had a really heavy paper that I'm printing on, and I was printing through that, but then the paper was warping a little. So what I'm doing now is I'm having it dry mounted to a 2-ply mat board, and then I'm beading through that mat board. So I'm using a needle and thread.
And what's the ultimate aim of that project, Professor? Are you going to display that, or is that something that you're in works or in conversation with having displayed?
Yeah, so like I said, that work right now is down in Santa Fe at the Museum of Contemporary Native Art. There's one piece that is up at Todd Bockley Gallery right now. And then I think it's gonna head to Todd Bockley in the summer after it's done in Santa Fe. And then after that, it'll travel to Rhinelander, I think. I'm still in discussion with them. So it'll be traveling, you know, for the next probably 1.5 to 2 years. And it'll probably continue on from that too. I just haven't set up anymore. The place that it'll be going to, the Museum of Wisconsin Art. I'll be having a mid-career retrospective there in 2022. And I'm not quite sure the date yet of when it'll, which month it'll start.
Well, that's exciting that you have so many different places to exhibit this, and not just locally, but a little more nationally as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that was our last question, unless anybody else has any more to pose to the chat board. But if nobody does, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Professor Jones, for coming out tonight and speaking with our audience. I can't speak for everybody, but just for myself, I found that really interesting. I cannot wait to go to the powwow. Hopefully they have it up next year, but we'll see how that goes. Only time will tell. But I would definitely love to go to that. It would not be my first powwow as a Native American Studies major in my early college career. So that would be absolutely fantastic to go and see that and witness the veterans portion of that as well. We'd like to thank everybody else for showing up tonight and experiencing this with Professor Jones and with the rest of our audience. And please don't forget that we have more great programming coming up at the Wisconsin Veterans Museum on our virtual platforms for the rest of the year. And that can be found at our website, wisvetsmuseum.com. And just as Chris mentioned at the beginning of the show, I need to do a little shameless promotioning as well for our gift shop. You can find that at store.wisvetsmuseum.com. It's completely rebranded. And as a matter of fact, they're doing even a small event tonight through the downtown representatives. So if you're looking for any last minute gifts, or if you're just starting your holiday shopping, you can certainly find some great stuff on our store website. And maybe someday, well, not maybe, soon, but we don't know how soon you'll be able to actually visit us in person as well. Thank you so much again, everybody. Professor Jones, thank you so much for taking some time tonight and speaking with us. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see everybody on our next mess night in January. And until then, we hope to see the rest of you at some of our other programming that happens throughout the months. And thank you very much and have a great night.